Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the best YouTube camera you can get in 2022. And more specifically, I'll be chatting about the best Sony cameras that YouTubers use, which are the Sony ZV-1 and the A7S III. Obviously, these two cameras were created for very different purposes, but I see so many YouTubers swear by each one of these for their YouTube content. So I thought it'd be interesting to make a video comparing these two, and we're gonna find out if it's worth spending the extra $3,000 US to get the A7S III. But let's first talk about what the perfect YouTube camera must have. I believe that there are three things that the best YouTube camera must have, and the ZV-1 and the A7S III share these characteristics, which are 4K at 24 frames per second, excellent autofocus, and a swivel screen. These three things are super important, so let's go over why. Starting with 4K at 24 frames per second. I think by now everyone knows that 4K is the new standard. For a long time, we could get away with filming in 1080p, but now I believe that all YouTube content should be filmed in 4K. I know a lot of people would disagree with me about this, but we have to think long term. We need to future-proof our content, and this will help with relevancy for years to come. Both of these cameras can film in 4K at 24 frames per second, and it looks really good. Check out the side-by-side comparison. Can you notice much of a difference? Okay, second essential characteristic is excellent autofocus. When filming YouTube content, it's a pain to use manual focus. You can get away with it if you stay in one spot, but if you have reliable autofocus, it'll make things so much easier, especially if you're moving around or vlogging or switching between talking to product shots. These cameras have some of the best autofocus systems on the market, and even though the ZV-1 is $3,000 cheaper, it performs quite well. Okay, third essential characteristic is a swivel screen. This is a no-brainer. The best YouTube camera must have a swivel screen. You need to be able to reference yourself while filming. Older Sony cameras only had a tilting screen, so if you attached a mic on top, you couldn't view yourself while filming. These swivel screens on the ZV-1 and the A7S III are so good, and I couldn't live without them. So now that you heard about the three main characteristics that the perfect YouTube camera must have, I want to talk about three differences between these two cameras. These differences will be the deciding factors as to which of these two cameras is right for you. First thing I want to talk about is lenses. Alright, so as you see, there's no way that you can change the lens on the Sony ZV-1. For some, this is a huge downside, but for others, this is a great feature. If you mainly focus on studio content and vlogging, it's really nice to have a small, compact camera that doesn't require a lens change. The Sony ZV-1 has a 24 to 70 millimeter 1.8 to 2.8 variable aperture lens, which is pretty fast and quite sharp. For people that need even faster lenses or higher quality glass, the A7S III is a better choice for you. So difference number two is stabilization. This difference really matters for vlogging. The A7S III has 5-axis in-body image stabilization, while the ZV-1 doesn't. The ZV-1 does, however, have electronic and optical stabilization that does work pretty well. The only issue is that on the ZV-1, if you have active stabilization turned on, it does crop in quite a bit in 4K. Check out how both these cameras look at 24 millimeters in 4K, and you'll see that the ZV-1 crops in quite a bit. Hey guys, how's it going? As you can see, the ZV-1 crops in incredibly when shooting in 4K at 24 frames per second. What do you guys think? Is that annoying at 24? It's quite a bit wider on the Sony A7S III. A solution to this is getting a wide angle adapter. The most popular one is made by Ulanzi, and I'll link it in the description below. Another company that makes an even better wide angle adapter is Gizmo, which is based out of Japan. They just sent me theirs in the mail and it should be arriving next week. I'm really stoked to review it. Okay, the third difference is frame rates. I mentioned earlier on in this video that the best YouTube camera must be able to film in 4K at 24 frames per second, but what about if you need to get some nice B-roll for your videos? Then I would suggest getting the A7S III. It can film up to 4K 120 at 4 frames per second. This is one reason why this camera costs so much. And if you want to film in 120 frames per second with the ZV-1, you're going to have to do it in 1080p because it maxes out at 4K 30 frames per second. Okay, so those are the 3 main differences between these cameras. Obviously, there are a lot more differences. If you're interested in learning more about the A7S III and the FX III, check out the video above. So which Sony camera do I believe is the best for YouTube? I'd have to go with the ZV-1. Now I own the FX III and the A7S III for professional content, but for everyday YouTube content, the ZV-1 is more than enough. So if you're in the market for a new camera or you're just getting started on YouTube, I highly suggest going for the Sony ZV-1. Well, thanks so much for watching today's video. I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if you think that the Sony ZV-1 is the best YouTube camera or if you think something else is. All my gear is linked in the description. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.